Hey guys, welcome to the MongoDB crash course. This video is going to be the first video in the series of tutorials that I will be uploading during the next 2 weeks. This MongoDB crash course will take you through the entire journey of creating your own free MongoDB instance, connecting to it, and then performing CRUD operations on it. To start with things, we will first have to look into the service Mongo Atlas, which provides us with a free Mongo database as a cloud service. Since this service has a free tier, it's perfect for someone who's starting with MongoDB. In this video, we'll be creating our free account and doing the initial configuration for it so we can move forward with the rest of the course. So let's get straight into it. To start with it, you can just search for MongoDB Atlas and click on any of these search results. Now these search results might land you to different pages, but as long as the page belongs to mongodb.com, it's fine. So I'll just open one of these links. You can also choose to type mongodb.com/atlas on the address bar. Just to give you guys a brief idea, Atlas is providing us with a database as a cloud service, which means that instead of creating and managing a MongoDB database on our own system, or which is also called on-premise database, which is existing on your physical computer, what we can do is provision a MongoDB database on one of the cloud providers. And as you can see here on the homepage, Atlas provides us with automated deployments where we do not have to worry about infrastructure provisioning, setup and deployment of the database instance. All we need to do is select a cloud provider, for example, one from the major cloud providers like Amazon's AWS, Microsoft's Azure, or Google Cloud are all supported by MongoDB Atlas, and you can also select the availability zone or region where your database will be existing. Now, since we're using a free tier account, things like instance size and memory will be fixed. But if you go ahead with the paid plan, you can also customize these specs for your database server. So without wasting any further time, let's go ahead and click on the try free button that's there on the top. It leads you to the route MongoDB Cloud Atlas register. So what you see here is a form for registering with MongoDB Atlas. You can choose to enter all of the values manually, or you can just scroll down and click on sign up with Google. And once you have logged in with Google, you will be taken to the page where they're basically asking you to accept the privacy policy and terms of service. You can choose to read both of them by clicking on the hyperlinks that are provided here. For the purpose of this video, I'll just click on the checkbox here and hit on submit. We got the welcome message saying that we have successfully registered with MongoDB Atlas. And now it's asking us a few basic questions about our project. So the first question is, what is the goal for this database? And I'll just click on that we are trying to learn MongoDB. Then the second question says, what type of application are we building? And for the time being, I'll just click on other. And the last question asks us about which particular programming language we'll be using for integrating our application with MongoDB. And we'll just click on the drop down. And as the very first option here, you have JavaScript. Let's just click on it and hit on the finish button. Now next up, we'll be taken to the payment options page where we can select which kind of MongoDB Atlas tier we want to go ahead with. The only thing you need to focus on is that we'll be creating a free tier account, where the best part is that we do not need to submit any kind of credit card information to start with, and it's best for learning and exploring purposes in a cloud environment. Now, along with our free database, we'll also get a sample set of datasets which we can go ahead and test right away. So let's go ahead and click on the create button for our free tier account. You'll be prompted to the next page where it will ask you which cloud provider you want to go ahead with and which region or availability zone you want to select. So we'll go ahead with the cloud provider AWS or Amazon Web Services itself, which will mean that our MongoDB server will actually be housed on one of the AWS server centers, and we can select which physical region around the world we want our database to be present at. So for example, since I'm here in India while I'm working on this particular course, I'll just click on the Mumbai availability zone, which was selected automatically. Now you would want to select the region that's closest to you, because the closer the region is, the lesser number of network hops your requests will have to make. So if you're sitting, let's say here in India, it doesn't make sense to create a MongoDB server in the Paris region. So we'll just go ahead with Mumbai. If you scroll a little bit down, you'll see what the free cluster tier properties are. So we have a shared RAM with 512 MB of storage. And the best part is that it's free forever. Other important features that you want to understand here is that we can have 500 maximum active connections at any point of time. There will be low network performance obviously because this is a free tier account. We can have at any point of time 100 maximum databases and a total of 500 maximum collections. So collections here is synonymous to tables in MySQL. So we are basically saying here that we cannot create more than 500 tables. Now you can choose to improve the database instance here, but as you can see here, you'll have to pay for it. There are some additional settings where you can choose to have a backup of a database, which will again be paid. And then we have our default cluster name, which is cluster 0. You can choose to rename your cluster. One thing that you have to remember here is that once your cluster is created, you won't be able to change the cluster name. So we'll keep the cluster name as cluster 0, which is the default one, and click on create cluster. And this is basically it. We are done creating our free MongoDB Atlas account. Now we need to do a little bit of configuration around it. You can see on the bottom that it's provisioning our MongoDB cluster, which will take a few minutes to finish. But meanwhile, it also took us to the quick start page where we can choose how we want to authenticate our MongoDB instance. We'll just go ahead with the simple username and password, where I'll give the username as root and will auto generate a secure password by clicking on this button here. You can copy the password and store it at a secure location and then click on create user. As you can see, in the meanwhile, our cluster has also finished provisioning. We can close this message and then scroll a little bit down to select the option as to where I would like to connect to the MongoDB cluster from. So we'll just click on the default my local environment because we are creating our account for local development and testing out MongoDB. And this option has been selected by default. On scrolling a little bit further, you'll see that we can add a list of IP addresses which will have the access to this particular MongoDB instance. You can go ahead and click on add my current IP address and it will fill out your IP address for you. And you'll see that in the list, your IP address will be added to the list down below, denoting that your IP is now whitelisted to access this particular cluster. Now, once you're done with all of the configuration, just click on finish and close and a pop-up will come up saying that congratulations on setting up access rules. Now, in the future, you can go ahead and add more such access rules, but for now, you'll be able to access the MongoDB cluster by the username and password that you just provided and manage your databases. So we'll just go ahead and click on go to databases button here and it will take you to the list of clusters that are there. Since we only have one cluster by the name of cluster 0, that's the only cluster you're able to see. And it has all the other information like which region it belongs to, which cluster tier it is, and how many nodes are there in the replica set. Now 3 nodes as replica sets means that there are 3 shards present for this one cluster. And database sharding is just a technique which helps you in horizontally scaling your database servers. Now you can also see that the status is active for a cluster by this green dot that's next to our cluster 0 name. We can choose to connect to our cluster by clicking on the connect button, and we can connect using MongoDB shell from our command line prompt or by using MongoDB Compass, which is a UI interface which you can choose to install on your system. But as of now, we'll just go ahead and click on browse collections to see what all collections are present in our cluster as of now. So as you can see, there are 0 databases and 0 collections. And to add a few collections, what we'll do is we'll just click on this load sample data button here, which will load 9 sample data sets for us to play around with. So I'll just click on this button. Now remember that the size of this sample dataset is around 350 MB and the total disk storage that we have is of 512 MB. So if you ever exceed that limit, just make sure that you clear up the sample dataset that was generated. I'll just click on load sample dataset button. And since it's a considerable amount of data, it will take some time to load. You can see the current status as to what's actually happening as a message here on the top. So it currently says that we are deploying your changes. And after a while, you'll be able to see the sample databases and collections that now exist on your cluster. So as of now, we have 2 sample databases with 4 collections in total. The databases names are sample mflix and sample training. And within sample training, we have three collections. For example, if we select on the routes collection, it will load all the documents that are present within it. We can click on this little arrow button here and expand on the given document. Now each document has an identifier by the key name underscore ID, where the object ID for that particular document is present. So one thing you'll notice about MongoDB documents that they are basically just JavaScript objects, where few of the properties have primitive data types, and also we can have nested objects and arrays within a property. So that was it for this video. In our next video, we'll be seeing how we can open this particular MongoDB cluster in our local system by using the MongoDB Compass tool.